Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Got it. So from now on, there is no political comments. Okay, so publishing strategies in astronomy, a fresh look at the ever-changing landscape. That's the title. Essentially, this is an update to a previous talk which I gave 4 years ago, open access developments, the 2019 update. Actually, this is a 2023 update. Every now and then it's worth looking at what this open access means and what it implies for us astronomers publishing, hardworking astronomers. As of today, I am not the Director General of the Research Center, but I am the member of the A&D Board of Directors, which I have been for the last 13 years now. So the Hungarian representative in the governing body of the European or International Journal, Astronomy and Astrophysics. This is my hat on my head today. Or the real title of my talk is how to react to the MNRAS situation. Because if you haven't noticed, there is an MNRAS situation. And I will try to explain the implications and the general implications of the whole bloody stuff, what MNRAS created in the past few months. So first of all, what's the matter? We are heavily publishing, of course. That's a very good news. When I report or when we report to our bosses, we always like to point out that the Astronomical Institute, Konkoly Observatory, has been increasing its publication output for many years, around 70, then 100, now last year 161. And I believe this year we may expect another record breaking because the Gaia papers appeared a year later than they should have. So the thing is that we are producing heavily papers, whereabout, with high impact journals. That's also measured by, if you add up this very crazy parameter, add up all the impact factors of the journals in which in our papers appear, then you get a cumulative number, a cumulative impact factor, which last year was again another record-breaking thing, almost reaching 1,000. I believe this year we are getting to hit the 1,000 mark, especially with the latest A&A impact factor. So the thing is that we have all these parameters, scientometric parameters, which look nice and which have a common background that essentially, if you look back, really, 2019, in which journals did a typical Konkoly Astro staff member publish, then the red ones were 3/4 in 2019, A&A, FJ, whatever, and monthly notices. Then in 2020, the same, two-thirds of all our papers appeared A&A, FJ, monthly notices. If you look at last year, even higher rate, you can see that A&A monthly notices and AAS journals, which today include FJ letters, FJ supplement, research notes, planetary science, I don't know, whatever else. PASP is also there. Third, and some other stuff elsewhere. So as of last year, we actually did publish 40 papers, 40 papers in monthly notices of the Astronomical Society. Why is this interesting? Because as of October the 1st, which is 4 days ago, monthly notices has switched its publication policy. It is going to be published fully open access. That's the title of the announcement of the Oxford University Press, the publisher of monthly notices, with sort of a positively sounding statement. Oh, finally, MNRAS is finally fully open access. All those very positive comments. However, if you look at the fine print, all the devil is always in the details. You can really check that. How will 2024 charges compare to history? I don't know. But the thing is that if you want to have one paper published in monthly notices, you have by default to pay 2,310 British pounds, which 1,033,000 Hungarian forints per paper. So if you look at plus the 27% VAT, so that's one point, but that's for the Hungarian state. So and Oxford will only get 1 million. But still, just one bloody, sorry for my language, one MNRAS paper is going to cost, as of 4 days ago, submissions, all submissions after October the 1st, 1,033,000 Hungarian forints. So if you calculate the 40 papers last year, that would have costed us 40 million forints. Plus, okay, 50 million, 50 plus, 52, 53 million Hungarian forints just for 40 MNRAS paper. Of course, they claim that I mean, this is again an excerpt from the Oxford University Press page. Where can I access funds to cover the APC? APC has replaced the page charges term. It is now called article processing charges. The thing is that we endeavor to ensure the authors can publish on the merit of their science. Yes, of course. Oxford University has a growing number of read and publish agreements with institutions. So essentially, what Oxford is trying to do is to push out the costs. Instead of charging institutes for subscription fees, they are trying to charge the authors or the authors' institutions. What I heard last week in Paris was that Oxford has an agreement with the Max Planck Society, meaning that in Germany, the Max Planck researchers will be able to publish in MNRAS for free because Max Planck Society is going to pay a heavy charge to Oxford to allow all those researchers to be able to publish. So there is a link. Find out if your institution is participating here. I have a bad news. No. Neither JFK, nor Bunren, nor Hungarian Academy of Sciences, nothing in Hungary is participating in this funding scheme. It is really worth looking at who let themselves be agreeing or becoming agreeing, it is forcing things. So the thing is, and then of course, generous waiver provisions will also be in place. I looked at that for third world countries, I mean developing countries. I mean, we don't like to think about ourselves as being in a developing country. Of course, sometimes we may feel it when you go to the doctor or when you go to the public school, you may feel that you are in the third world or in a developing country, but as a point of view of science, we don't belong to those, so don't expect generous waivers for Hungarian astronomers. I mean, we are not in that category. I would say, thankfully, we are not in that category anymore. This thing that MNRAS made this step is not an accident. It really belongs to a long-term trend in the publishing world. This is a figure which goes back to 2000 and goes up until 2018. The library spending index comparison with the 2000 baseline, meaning that the actual prices spent on library subscriptions and including article processing charges, page charges, whatever. And you could see that in 18 years, you can have a baby born and then become adult. And also you can have the library spending going from 1 to actually 2. So there in the last 2 decades, publishing has become very expensive. Publishing and reading is they are very closely intertwined. Of course, I have already showed this many years ago that this is when a PhD student goes to a conference and meets the boss of nature, and then actually they say we can charge whatever we want. It's essentially a monopoly. So scientific publishing as an industry is one of the most efficient money-making industry because the typical from the revenues, the real net income is in the order of 30 to 40%, which means that they charge, for every 1 million euros, they will have at least 300,000 as a net income for them. So it's really not a high fraction of the revenue is going into their pockets. I mean, typical rates are more like 10% or less. I mean, if you're not taking in a pyramid scheme. So scientific publishing as it works as of today is still, even though for the last couple of years there were many talks about how to change the landscape, it's still moving large sums of money. Politicians usually make our lives more miserable than it was before. And I would say that in 2018, the same thing happened in the publishing landscape when Plan S was announced that it is going to be the European policy of scientific publishing. I already showed this, I mean, a previous version of this page. This is a web page, coalitions.org, coalition-s.org. Essentially, they are very proud of this thing because they are organizing a webinar November the 2nd this year, and they are celebrating the 5th year of Coalition S and Plan S. There, they really were pushing very strongly that if you are funded from public money, then your results must be accessed for the general public. And that's the whole idea behind open access. We are paid from taxpayers' money. No taxpayer should be charged to be able to read your results. That's the idea. And Coalition S is exactly about that. The Plan S, I didn't show it here, but actually the European unions, the Brussels administration, the ERCs, all those are pushing for this, that everything must be or within a reasonable time frame, everything must be published as an open access resource. So this is really the motivation for that. And of course, there was a motivation, this is 4 years ago, reduce expenditures for journal subscriptions. Of course, that's a very good news if there is no subscription fee anymore. Monthly notices will be really a gold open access from January the 1st next year, meaning that there will be no subscription fee for monthly notices. But they are really pushing the charges to the authors instead of, the readers. So this is really, 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 really not necessarily the best outcome. So the definition of here is shown open access, a free, immediate online availability for research articles coupled with the rights to use these articles fully in digital environment. That's very nicely sounding thing. So this was announced 5 years ago, essentially half a decade later, they are celebrating it. I'm not sure that this is a really good thing. There were some principles, but as I said, this I showed 4 years ago, and I know that there are new staff members who are not here. So Plan S principles, I think the CCBY is important. So if you publish something, everyone can use it and you reuse it. That's the CCBY policy essential state. So if you publish your paper under CCBY, then everyone can take a picture, a plot, a figure, a table, whatever, of course, indicating the source, but there is no copyright policy which would, for example, keep the copyrights with ISO as it used to be with the AND or the Oxford or the publisher or the Royal Society, whatever. So there were various owners of the copyright in the past. Here, the Plan S principle, which is increasingly adopted by various publishers and journals and institutions, CCBY is there. Quality of OA funds, cap fees, various buzzwords are shown there. No one really is sure what they mean, even those who have invented these buzzwords. But the thing is that it was already clearly seen 2019, again, this is from a presentation 2019, that some scientists already feared the restrictions of academic freedom. Those who have will be able to publish. Those who don't have will just be sidelined. So this is really, because someone at the end of the day must pay. If no subscription, then who else is there to pay? So with Plan S, you can see that this is the last day, yesterday's screenshot of the coalition-s.org webpage. So various funding organizations have joined Coalition S, and this is, as I said, increasingly becoming adopted. So what kind of publishing business models remain? Because at the end of the day, there are costs related to your papers. It may not necessarily be clear to everyone that when you publish, when you prepare, don't read this is just rubbish. So when you it's too complicated. So when you prepare your article in a LaTeX and it gets accepted by a journal, there is still plenty of work to be done, and that's done by the publishers. You know, because you may think that you are producing camera-ready format, but you are not. And the publishers, truly, I know what I'm talking about in regards of A&A, but all the other journals do plenty of technical fixes after they publish your paper. Especially those are also accepting other document formats. Like AAS Journals do accept Word submissions, Microsoft Word submissions. They will certainly have to do with them, with those articles, something. And that costs time, people's effort, that if that translates into money, costs. So 4 years ago, it was already clear that various publishing business models exist. In the past, we had this closed thing, subscriptions, institutes, libraries have paid subscription fees, and those who were members of the institutes could read. Gold open access, which is getting free, that article processing charges charged by the commercial publishers, typically to the authors, and then, so this is who pays authors. How much depends on the publisher, who reads? Everyone. So gold open access when everyone can read, but then the authors have to pay. I'm afraid that this gold and open access is what is right now the dominant. If you look at the publishing world. And very interesting, and at that time, it seemed to be completely unrealistic business model is called subscribe to open. First, inventors were annual reviews, not just Astronomy and Astrophysics, but all the annual reviews were published under the subscribe to open model, where the libraries pay, essentially, libraries paying the subscription fee, and if enough subscribers pay for the content, then the content becomes free. So, and after that, everyone can read. And it's a question of taste, or question of financial calculation of how many subscribers are enough to cover the cost. And why would a single library pay if the librarian knows that there is going to be an open access for the whole thing? But interestingly enough, this model seems to work. So for the moment, this is a collection for our main journals. I mean, we already saw that from 2/3 to 3/4, we are really dealing with AAS journals, multi-notices, and A&A. So what are the current conditions for these three large journal families or journal groups? AAS journals are, as of today, published under gold open access. Multi-notices is going to become fully gold open access from January next year. A&A switched to S2O last year in April. So the last year and a half, A&A was subscribed to open, where we at the board of directors agreed with the publisher that as long as 95% of the subscribers return every year, then the journal is kept. Right now for this year, I think we are at the 92%, 93% of the baseline subscription rates, subscription numbers. And we say that, okay, that's an acceptable loss. Because in the past 15 years, so in the last 2 decades, there was a steady decrease in the subscription numbers to the journal, even to A&A. And essentially, ever since we introduced the S2O, the subscribe to open model last year, it's just the same trend continuing. So we still have well above 530 plus subscribers to A&A. So with AAS journals, you pay for the digital quanta, which are defined in various ways, because number of characters or number of words, you can have digital quanta in terms of tables, in terms of figures. And depending on the quantum number, 30, 31 to 50, 51 to 100, you pay this much US dollars for your digital quantas. For very lengthy papers, about 100 digital quanta, you have extra $250 per quanta. So you can have infinite number of pages in your paper if you have infinite source of money. So the thing is that with that, and no subscription is associated. So we don't pay subscription to AAS Journals anymore. For monthly notices, this is going to be from January next year, but then you have to pay 2,310 British pounds per paper, regardless of the length of the paper. It can be a three-page letter. It can be 36 pages of whatever. It can be whatever and whatever, 100 plus pages. The same 1,033,000 for Hungarian forints per paper. But then, in the past, they had a subscription fee, an annual subscription fee of well in excess of 8,000 euros. So monthly notices was the most expensive one. Now it's just dropped, and now they are pushing all the costs and all the income source to the authors. And then with A&A, I have very good news, and I will have several good news throughout this talk today, that it's for us, it's for free. Outside A&A countries, which I'm going to define soon, there is an APC, an article processing charge, which was defined roughly 20 years ago, and it is still the same, 100 euros per page. So we still call it page charges. And if the first author is outside A&A member countries, then, for 12 pages, 1,200 euros per paper is the article processing charge.
Plus VAT.
Plus VAT, plus VAT. I'm not sure. Maybe we can cheat with that, but don't tell it now. Okay, the thing is that, but even if you are outside an A&A country, even if you are a US astronomer, this 100 euro per page is way cheaper than monthly notices or AAS Journals. So as a matter of fact, at A&A Board of Directors for the last, I would say a year, maybe ever since this was announced, this was in spring, so last 6 months, we were eagerly waiting for the first signs whether people who used to publish in monthly notices are turning toward A&A. With A&A, we have, subscribe to open, which means that there is a subscription fee, which is a sort of, 3,400 euros per year. Hungary is one of the A&A countries, which means that we continue to maintain a journal which is based upon an agreement between 28 parties. One of them is the European Southern Observatory, ESO, and the rest 27 are the sponsoring bodies of the member countries. All different countries have different sponsoring bodies. The Hungarian sponsoring body is the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. Some other countries, the ministries are the sponsoring bodies. Some other countries, the astronomical societies are the sponsoring bodies. And there are even observatories who are essentially acting as the sponsoring body for that country. For Hungary, the current price tag of being in the A&A agreement is 2,400 euros per year for Hungary, which implies that everyone who resides in Hungary, not the native, everyone, an Argentinian guy comes here and lives here, that person is already considered to be Hungarian because of the residential addresses in Hungary. So everyone can publish for free if resides in the sponsoring.
So that is the subscription, or there is an extra
So we have the observatory subscription. We do, and Alta University also subscribes. So from Hungary, A&A in total gets about, I would say, 9,000, almost 10,000 euros.
So this is per institute.
This is per institute, yes, per institute. So we have this year we have right now, I think 538 subscriptions. So you can multiply that, it's about 1.8 million euros per year from subscription fees. And then we have the sponsoring bodies. Of course, we also have another option, which is not necessarily widely known. There was an email from Árpád Magyar, the librarian of the research center in June, that actually IOP, the publisher of the AAS Journals, do have an APC-free agreement with Hungary, which actually includes one journal, which is interesting for us, PASP. So publication of Astronomical Society of Pacific is for free for this year. If you submit before the end of the year into PAS, then that paper will not be charged by IOP. But the agreement doesn't contain FJ letters, FJ supplement, nothing like that.
But there is a quota.
No, there is no quota. Actually, there is no quota because they didn't get infinite number. That's an interesting question. Thank you. So there is no quota associated with this PASP, but it is also clear that it is a year-by-year thing. We only know for sure that this transformational agreement. This is how it is called. This transformational agreement with IOP concerning PASP is only signed until December 31st this year. So whatever happens next year, we will see. AAS open access publishing model, which was the first, the APCs and pushing all the charges to the authors, was criticized, but they were the first. When multi-notices announced the decision to switch to gold open access and with great APCs, then the three leaders of the AAS Journals published this August AAS open access publishing model, open, transparent, and fair. So this is a very interesting read. I suggest to everyone to look at the IOP webpage. They are making the statement that it is fair to charge because the initial assumption is that there are costs related to publishing a journal. Someone must pay, and if you want open access, which are conflicting, open access and published and charging the costs this is a conflict of interest. So the thing is that this conflicting ideas. So they say that the fairest way is what AAS journals are doing, counting the quanta and charging by the quanta. They actually highlight MNRAS case that having 4 pages and 24 pages for the same rate, that's not fair. And also, without mentioning ANDA's name, they are also complaining that S2O is strange, and these Europeans are making this very strange, that there some countries are, astronomers in some countries can publish for free, others cannot. So that's an unfair treatment of people outside the ANDA countries.
That's quite interesting. So my husband's a professional editor for geometry and topology in AAS Journals, which is US based,
yes.
And they use S2O.
Yes.
So to say this has something to do with being in Europe is really
that's completely out of yes.
Being in Europe or being in math.
Yes. The other suggested webpage to look at is the subscribe to open.org. I think there is a webpage. Exactly. And right now more than 50 publishers have adopted S2O model, and mostly Americans. Mm-hmm. So this is not a European, not a European thing at all. So A&A, I have a very good news if you have a friend in Uruguay or Georgia. Georgia, yes. Just in this last June, so this year in June, in Heraklion, we had the last board meeting of the board of directors, and we adopted 2 new member countries. Ireland is the new full member, from September the 1st this year. So for the last month, Irish astronomers were able to submit to ANDA for free, and Uruguay is the new observer. So the thing is that this is really a reasonable fraction of the world. Of course, we may, very recently we got a letter of intent from Mexico. Some people are interested in Canada, maybe in Australia one day. So, there are, of course, certain limits of growth, but it is good to see that there are sponsoring bodies, there are astronomical communities who think ANDA is worth joining. If you actually look at where the ANDA papers are coming from, you can see Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Netherlands, blah, 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 and then other non-sponsoring. China is the largest non-sponsoring country submitting papers to ANDA. As of this year, the total volume of ANDA papers will reach about 2,500 papers, which is the third. There will be a table later where there are numbers. So it's not the largest. MNRAS published last year well over 3,000 papers. FJ is the same, 3,000 plus. But still, A&A is very much international already, because even with the paid charges, it is the cheapest version. This is origin and A&A referees, and there will be a side note here. So quarter of the referees come from the United States, reflecting the fact that most of the astronomers reside in the United States. I often hear the complaint about A&A that refereeing is very slow, and that's why people have preferred the monthly notices. I do hope that not just the money, but also what I am going to say in a minute will be convincing to you that it's not necessarily the journal is the problem. It is the problem is in us. Just heard last week that in some topics, it's very common that 10 candidate referees are asked to be able to find one who accepts the invitation to serve as a referee. The general average for the whole A&A is roughly 5 to 6 invitations just to get one person accepting the invitation to become a referee. People don't accept invitations to act as referees simply because we are all way too busy. I mean, the lifestyle, the modern society is pushing on us is really, I think, the reason behind. So the thing is that the acceptance time for A&A papers last year from submission to acceptance, this is a cumulative distribution, of course, but you can say that half of the papers are about within 3 months already accepted. Of course, there is a long tail. Some papers can suffer for more than a year. Sometimes even getting a referee can take more than a year time. This is a receipt of the first referee reports, how quickly the referees react. We at A&A, we typically get, I think, 4 weeks deadline. Half of the referee reports are written within 30 days. So it's not the journal as such, you know, as being the bad guy, but it's really the referees who are some kind of lazy guys. But then, of course, you can always say that the journal can be more proactive to keep fresh, you know, to make the tough movement by the hands, creating pains in some people. So the thing is that A&A, if you look at some further effects and figures, if you look at the rejection rate, the average of the A&A rejection rate is about 10 to 12%, which means 7 out of 8 papers submitted in A&A just gets accepted. In some topics, the rejection rate is higher, like in astrophysical processes or instrumentation, because not really clear whether instrument description is worth an A&A paper. There was a real discussion about this. People were very, very unhappy about this high rejection rate in instrumentation. And there was a discussion among the board members. But as I said, that the average is around 15, 12, I think 12%, which is 1/8. So 7 out of 8 papers gets accepted in A&A. So it's just typical rejection rate. It is nothing like the rejection rate of nature, of science, which are 95%. 1 out of 20 papers gets accepted in nature or in science.
That depends strongly on who you are.
Yes, of course. There are many subjective factors. A&A letters have become increasingly popular in the last 10 years. Actually, the number of the submissions grew by actually double, whereas the number of papers did not double. There was just a 25% change. So the interesting part, of course, we all know about the impact factors, which is a commercial product of Clarivate, a company which sells these numbers. Of course, every journal is allowed to publish its own impact factor calculated by that company. So one can actually collect, but if you see an Excel table with all the impact factors of astronomical journals, please remove it or delete it because that's unlawful, or hide it behind some wall. So the thing is that if you look at the evolution of the impact factor of the main journals in the astronomical fields, A&A, MNRAS, AJ, FJ are shown here. The 2022 figure, which came out right after the board member meeting in June, so that's why the extra numbers are shown here. So this plot, which comes from the editor's report for the board of members. In 2021, A&A's impact factor was around 6. The latest impact factor is 6.5. by far the largest compared to the other mainstream journals in astronomy. The green, this AJ, that's 5.3. MNRAS is 4.8 and FJ is 4.9. That's actually almost 2 is the difference. That seems to be, you know, sort of starting to look significant. And PASP, which was mentioned previously because we can publish there for free, has a latest impact factor is 3.5. So if you are submitting grant applications or fellowship applications where you are asked about impact factor, you can realize that actually publishing in ANA is not necessarily a bad thing, because it is actually in that scientific dimension, it's in a way have a better prestige than the other journals. But of course, it was a long process. 10 years ago was not the case. Of course, then FJ was really leading the crowd with 6+, 7+ impact factors. Now it went down below 5. Whereas ANA, with some interesting decisions from the editorial board, has managed to almost, not necessarily double. Before 2012, we did see ANA impact factors in the range of 3+, so now 6.5, it's doubled. One thing about ANA, if you have ever submitted to ANA, I'm sure that most of the audience have submitted to ANA, MMS, the manuscript system, manuscript management system, is going to be replaced very soon by a new software, which is called Nestor. So there will be a new management system, for which it is good, because for which I can report that we expect to be operated on a regular basis from January next year. It will lead the manuscript from day 0 to the publishing. So right now, MMS is used by the authors to submit their papers, submit their revisions, and then data from MMS are manually transported to EDP Sciences, the publisher. So Nestor, which is a development by the current ANA publisher, EDP Sciences, will lead through the whole production chain. So it will be one single production chain from submission to publication. So that will be an effect which we expect to be speeding up the publication.
But will the submission process be as complicated as MNRAS, where you have to go through page after page after page after page?
We have visited Arunas Kuchinskas, the current chair of the board of directors, and myself visited EDP Sciences in late August, and we got a demonstration of Nestor, and it looked to be quite straightforward to use. We will see. I'm not sure, because it was mostly focusing on how the editors will see the system, but it was a great promise that even the authors will find the changes comfortable, making life less miserable. So right now, ANA is published under the S2O model for the last 2 years. What if S2O fails for ANA? So this is very complicated. You don't look at the details. But the important point is that right now, ANA has 3 sources of income: from subscriptions, from contributions from member countries, ANA countries, and ESO members. There's just bullshit here, that's ANA members, and paid charges for those people who are outside ANA countries. And to split into real numbers, the actual annual contribution from the sponsoring body is €250,000 per year. Another €250,000 is received through the article processing charges, the paid charges from astronomers outside the member countries. And the big chunk of the money is coming to EDP Sciences, the publisher, $1.8 million. If we were forced to really, get rid of all the subscriptions, no subscription would mean that 1.8 million would be missing immediately. And if you think of publishing 2,000 papers, that would imply, I would say, about €1,000 per paper immediately. So we are really hoping, or we are preparing for ourselves that subscriptions will survive for the coming next 2 years, because simply libraries do recognize the importance of maintaining the journals. Another problem from the money side is that papers are becoming longer. And this is something which I really hate. I hate it. For the last 2 years, I have made a series of videos on YouTube about reviewing the Hungarian astronomers, the publications. And I noticed simply that, you know, when you have 3 parameters, you discover 2 correlations between the 3 parameters, and you just show all your data in 16 figures, and at the end of the day you have 20 pages just describing the 2 correlations. That's excessive. So I will be very strongly I will be a strong proponent of making authors submitting shorter papers, or put your so important data into an appendix or even a supplementary material section. Appendices costs less. Supplementary material, which right now doesn't exist in A&A, would be for free. So if you have an important correlation, please present it in 4 pages, and you have 16 plots to show that the way you arrived, that's a supplementary material. So the thing is that right now, the current average in A&A is gross 16 pages, of which 13 contains something. The other 3 pages, the title, the references, the acknowledgements, the list of authors, you know, whatever you can imagine. The actual content is still 13 pages per paper. Sorry, but that's long. Please keep yourself. You don't have to show all your plots. Because I have noticed this. So right now, the problem with A&A is that it is becoming very popular, and this year we expect to publish in total 31,000 pages. 31,000 pages, whereas we have only a contract with the publisher for 29,000. So we have an issue of how to pay for that. We are going to be able to manage that, but that's another point. And please expect some editorial policy change next year coming from A&A, which will be about please make your papers shorter. And I think there is a reason for that, yes?
But then you must also be careful, because it's not only plots and so on. You know what is another problem is the number of references you have to quote, because there's a billion other people who are doing the same thing. Yes. And then the referees say, oh, you must compare your work to these, and that adds another 5 pages.
Yes.
So the editors have to stop doing that.
I'm entirely sure that there are many various factors. Yeah. But on general, I mean, 10 years ago, the average number of pages per paper was about 9 to 10. So there is a steady increase. So we are just like to talk more. We don't have to.
The literature gets more saturated.
The literature is more saturated. Yes, that's something we have to think about. How to make our paper shorter. We have already some plans. What happens if S2O fails? Of course, this is how it works right now. If subscription right now is the period for subscription renewals, libraries are kindly asked, please renew for next year. If you renew, you can get some sort of discount, I think like a 5% discount. When the target reached, then S2O open. If there is target noise, no, this is not coming back. So that's for sure. We will not going back to the gated access. We are now thinking about modified S2O. If target reached, that's fine. If target is not reached, then we can have gold plus diamond open access. Diamond means that the authors can publish for free and they can read for free. That would be only for member countries. Outside gold open access, so they have to pay. And then if you are missing from 1.8 million in the budget, then you have to get more income or decrease the costs. So cost reductions are also there. Right now, we went through the publication process at ADP Sciences headquarters, which is outside Paris center, so far away from the nice parts of the city. Actually, people are doing manually corrections of textual corrections, figurative corrections, which can, I'm pretty sure that in 5 years' time will be done by AI. So that will be a huge cost reduction. Right now, by the way, the new tender is coming to A&A because the current contract with EDP Science is ended by December 31st, 2025, two years from now. The preparations have already started. Target date for signing the new contract, December 2024, effective of January 2026. So we are talking about predicting the future into 3 years from now when you are doing when you are doing an ESO public procurement. That's a bloody headache. So the thing is that with A&A, right now we see the future for the next 2 years. Out there, we will see next year. Some further issues now, let's leave alone A&A, and some further issues worth noting. I put here a few things which hopefully will be interesting or worthwhile looking at for the junior people who have not necessarily have that many years of experiences in publications. Overall, we do have an institutional subscription for how many people? 10? 10 people. So if you are not sure, if you are not familiar with Overleaf, please know it, please learn it, because that's the current gold standard for collaborative editing, collaborative writing in LaTeX. And there is an institutional subscription. 10 people have authority to create. Your group leaders essentially are all, they have an authorization to create LaTeX files, which after then you can share with your co-authors, things like that. So we do have a subscription to Overleaf. ChatGPT is with us. There is no doubt about that. Last month, Nature published the news, 8th of September, that actually people have written actual scientific articles, and even those articles went through the reviewers, through the refereeing process. And it turned out that all the manuscript, the text was created with ChatGPT. And the reason how it was revealed that when are using, how many of you have used ChatGPT already? Yeah, most of us. So with ChatGPT, you have that button, regenerate. So some authors simply copy-pasted from their browser all the text plus the button regenerate. And it was left in the manuscript, and even the referees did not notice that there is a regenerate text somewhere along in the article. So the thing is that AI has entered the scene. I'm pretty sure. I must admit, some of my circulars to the GFK, that GFK and GFK.org are translated. Sometimes from Hungarian to English, sometimes from English to Hungarian using dpl.com. So I already, because it saves me time. Correcting something is much easier and less time consuming. So it is with us. We don't know where it goes, but I'm pretty sure that whenever you are using it, please acknowledge that for the generation of someone, I don't know, for the moment, there is no standard how to acknowledge. But we are pretty sure that an increasing fraction of people are using ChatGPT for creating text. We all also know that ChatGPT is very bad at writing scientific text, creating non-existing references, and which look very convincing, but they just don't exist. And you know, that's dangerous when just language model is used to create text.
It's a feature.
It's
not a bug.
It's not a bug, it's a feature, yes. So the thing is that AI has entered the scene. We don't know where it is going to be in the next couple of years, but please be prepared that one day you may write your shiny new article with some ChatGPT-like assistant, and just you have to acknowledge that this text has been written using ChatGPT 7.5, whatever. It may not be the case, and the point which I like to make is that if you do this, don't forget the regenerate button. And essentially not forget it with it. So with the journal impact factor, we do have an alternative, the SIMAGO journal ranking, and that's where the Q numbers come into the picture. That is again a big one, score one for me. You know, when the school you get the score one for the worst thing. You should never ever project tables. So don't look at it. Just look at me. Listen to me. So this is actually the free right now. Free because Elsevier decided to keep it free. One day they decided that it will not be free. So this is the SJS SIMAGO journal rank list of astronomical journals. First page, starting from annual review, going down to PASP. You can see the total number of docs. Not a single one with more than 1,000 papers. So this is very small journals, small number statistics playing the game. But the real journals really A&A for 2022, 2,100, 3,200, 3,400. So A&A, FJ, and Monthly Notices has essentially published about, I would say this is 9,000 papers. That's probably 85% all astronomical papers. So these are really the three big ones. And among the three big ones, A&A is leading the crowd, but of course they are negligibly different. So they are essentially intercomparable. Anyway, Web of Science, I have used in the past, just recently noticed that you can register for free and you can get something out of Web of Science. If you are not happy with ADS, but we all use ADS, I just show this because some people have papers or journal. Some of us publish in journals which are not necessarily indexed in ADS. Then Web of Science is an alternative way of doing your list of publications, citation, and even complex analysis like using your co-authors and things like that. And finally, this is I think the second last slide, the ORC ID. How many of you don't have an ORC ID? Okay, so the thing is that ORC ID must be there. You must have an ORC ID. ORC ID is not for identifying the ugly creatures from the Lord of the Rings, but to identify all the researchers who register into the ORC ID system, because more and more journals link your papers through your ORC ID. So this is really a way of identifying, and especially if you have Chinese collaborators, the infinite number of Lees and Poos and Keys and She's and Who's and whatever. So I think the Lees are the most numerous ones. The only way to get to know those through the ORC ID. So ORC ID is something which everyone must have. And I believe, yes, this was the last slide. Thank you for your attention, and the floor is open for discussion. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Come on, people, what is this?
Yes,
what's the recommendation for where to publish? Is there a one-word summary of this from your side?
Let me go back to the table of the journals. I think right now the OTCA projects, all the OTCA and Elvanor projects have an obligatory open access component. This is typically 5% of the total budget.
10.
So there is money for article processing charging. So if you have a fancy, shiny new result, which can be squeezed into 4 pages, go to FJ letters. If you have something shiny new result, which can be squeezed into 6 to 8 pages, and you want to get the American colleagues to know about it, because we all know the traditions are very tough to overcome. So go for an FJ. With PASP, you can also reach for free to the Americans. For the monthly notices, I'm not sure. I simply don't see a reason. From my point of view, I would say that I don't know how many papers I have co-authored in the past 25 years. Probably about 250, 300. I don't know. About half were, I would say, so the third were MNRAS, third were A&A, third the rest. And I don't see a real difference in the citation rates I mean, I have highly cited ANA papers, I have highly cited non-physics papers, I have highly cited FJ papers. I don't really think that it is really that much effect. But because with the OTCAs, with the NKFA, OTCAs and ELMA projects, you have the obligatory 5%. I don't see any other way to spend that 5% than to use AAS Journals or even Montfort. But for Montfort, this is so outrageous. The way they treated the global astronomical community, that just, you know, from a point of view of personal reaction and emotional reaction, I wouldn't go there. I would rather go to FJ instead of Montfort. So the short answer, we do have resources, but don't overspend. So I think that the 5%, which is obligatory, can be used, should be used, must be used, because if you don't use it, we have to pay it back. And no money is to be paid back, to ever. So we must use those resources. Yeah.
Also a good point for both AAS and Montfort, if somebody has strong feelings about pushing there, they both have waiver funds.
Yes, that's an important part.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can just write them, like, you know, how much reduction from the half or something like that.
No, for AAS, typically we ask for 80% reduction, and it's
yes. They I mean, we don't know what the practice in MNRAS will be. Maybe they will be so friendly that, oh, you're sure you can just pay 10%, but who knows? With the AAS Journals, we do have very good experiences. So if you want to have your shiny result to appear in FJ, please prepare the paper, and then when it gets accepted, ask for a waiver. Page.
It's still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money, but
20% is a lot of money.
But you know, million for it per MNRAS paper.
Yeah, but if your paper is 40 pages, you basically screw them over.
Yeah.
Right. So if you, I think the way we should do it is, you want to publish a monthly notice, only submit very long papers.
It's 100 pages. It's even.
Yeah, I mean, but if it's but 2,300 pounds plus VAT, so you're looking at 2,600. That's about 3,000 euros, give or take.
Yes.
So that means if you pay 30, if it's 30 pages or longer, then it's cheaper than ANA, and then you screw them over. So then you do that.
But it's for free. As long as we can convince the Hungarian Academy of Sciences that please pay that 2,400 euros. Come on, that's 1 month gross salary of a postdoc, so it's a tiny amount. But then, of course, if subscription will go away because the S2 model fails, then we will have to generate a much higher income. I mean, tripling the sponsoring bodies' contributions would probably be enough to keep A&A forever. But squeezing down to the throat of the MTA, tripling this amount, almost 8,000 euros per year, is probably difficult.
But what about Hindawi and PLOS and Elsevier and so forth? I mean, Elsevier is, of course, the worst of its kind, or Axel Springer. Don't they have any competing? I mean, I publish in Icarus, which is Elsevier.
Yes.
Earth and Planetary Science Letters, which is Elsevier. They are free, but they're always paywalled. But with monthly notices and some of the AAS and AA, they were paywalled for like 2 years, something like that. And then they were open access for everybody. Yes. But with Elsevier, it is perpetually paywalled.
Elsevier is
the worst.
Yes, it's one of the.
So, but are there not anything like from PLOS or Hindawi that we could use?
I mean, Hindawi already raising a red flag in my mind, because it's if there is a predator publisher, then Hindawi is one.
Okay.
For PLOS, I'm not sure, but everyone must know that there is a heated discussion everywhere about the publishers. And for example, the Hungarian Academy of Sciences just recently had a meeting at the doctoral committee about evaluating the publishers, which ones are predatories, which ones are not, which ones are accepted, which ones are not. So it's essentially a topic of debate. Which publisher. So if we think that most of our papers, the good ones, are published in these three essential journal groups, then we can live with these. And of course, time to time we can attempt nature, science, anything like that. But then we know that most of our hardworking results are published in these three.
Any more questions, people?
What about the Chinese subscription? I mean,
China joining ANA?
No. How many subscriptions coming from China? Because previously I knew that they had only 1 or 2 per country, and they distributed all over the institute.
I think the Chinese market is increasing for ANA. I mean, there are more subscriptions. And we also have an associate editor in China, Zhan Wenhan, the Haneta author who is about the SDB stars 2001. So it's a stellar guy, member of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. So he resides, I believe, in Shanghai, and he is a he is a strong proponent of ANA subscriptions. So China, we all know the Chinese way of doing things is sometimes copying things all over the place. I believe the Chinese market is becoming stronger for it. But then one must note that, for example, now 1 in 7 papers in FJ are already Chinese, by Chinese authors. Whereas in ANA, we rarely see. I mean, we have a number of Chinese submissions, but the accepted number of Chinese papers is well in the order of 10 to 20. Whereas in FJ, I think in 2021, already 14%, which means 1 out of 7 papers were published by Chinese authors. So, for example, the Americans fully embraced the Chinese community.
But it's also that the Chinese community as a whole looks mostly towards America.
And they
even at the universities, all the students were like, we want to go to the US. And Europe was not really on their map, maybe the UK.
And then they also get very often the Chinese authors get the financial extra bonus in publishing FJ.
Yeah.
So that's reason.
Are there any plans to recruit Japan or the UK to aid?
UK, there's no way. With MNRAS, it's simply out of question. I think that we were discussing which countries are realistic to join: Israel, Mexico, Canada,
Romania, Latvia are not in there. For
Latvia is
What
in the
about
map.
Australia? Because they have PASA.
But PASA only publishes about 150 to 200 papers per. So that's a tiny little journal.
And now with the MNRAS, they used to publish there a lot.
Yes, a lot.
So now they'll have to make choices.
Yes, I mean actually, Australia joining ESO is already almost a decided fact. I mean, they are now associated member of the European Southern Observatory, but I heard rumors from various sources that they are planning to become a full member of ESO.
But India or Turkey maybe can.
Turkey is also an option. I mean, this is always a matter of it's a political question, because if you have a country with large GDP, that's good for the journal, for the income. But if the community is small there, then they may feel that they are they are overpaying for being members. Yeah.
I had a question about, you mentioned that it's hard to find referees for papers. What do you think on and they both thinks that's maybe because maybe not AA the best journal, that the people, researchers have a feeling that they get nothing in a sense, they are not paid, and that's not part of this huge or outrageous amount of profit that they are making, not A&A, but the rest. So I can imagine, because we have heard about the authors that denied referring for Nature because of the 10,000 euro, whatever, for an access, which is, I can completely agree with. I myself try to accept any such kind of request anytime, either by delaying something else. But I can completely understand people who say that, hey, you are making too much profit and I get nothing.
We have constantly discussed this we have for the last every year is coming up how to attract referees more efficiently. This last week we had a smaller committee meeting in Paris, and we were discussing the option of possibility of maybe offering a discount in the pay charges to the American referees. They may feel attracted by that. Not giving up all that pay charges, but discounts of something, so that they can publish for a reasonable price in A&A. Yeah, for serving as a referee. But then that doesn't change anything with the European referee candidate.
Yeah, because you always said that's always that someone has to pay. Okay, but how much? Because when you are doing too much profit, it's publicly available data, not for A&A, but for
2.3 million euros a year is peanuts compared to national research budgets. I mean, we could basically ask France to pay all of that and they wouldn't notice it.
It's not the same league, I guess.
It's in the noise and we wouldn't have to pay anything.
The thing is that 500,000 from APCs for A&A, 500,000 from contributions, that's roughly running the editorial office of A&A.
Yeah, but it's nothing, it's peanuts.
So that's not and that's all the real costs are the huge costs, and of course there is an income is with the publisher. So we will see how it develops, but we are essentially talking about peanuts. I mean, in terms of the global economy, hundreds of thousands. I mean, when we are talking about millions, even with millions, not tens of millions, but millions of euros, that's just a tiny amount of money. We all know that, for 27 billion forints, you can buy a lot. Anyway.
Okay, you have to explain.
You
have to explain that one to me someday.
Yes. Okay.
Any more questions? Last question, and then.
So maybe as more as a comment, like for the regarding long papers. Now we're testing like as another option, alternative to put an appendix in the end.
Yes.
Put the extra material, extra figure in Zenodo, because in Zenodo you can it's free. Basically, you can put the figures, tables, etc. And the advantage is that you get a DOI.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that, like the impact factor doesn't increase, but for the same publication, potentially you could increase the number of citations.
Yeah, the visibility is increased by that. Yes.
So this is something that I don't know if someone is going to really cite also the paper and the DOI of the Zenodo application. I don't know. I don't know if I can really
I think there will be a reason to have a repeated discussion like this in 4 years' time, because everything will be completely different by then, I think.
Can you see an increase? Maybe it's too early. Can you see an increase in the number of submitted papers to A&A?
Just barely.
Just barely.
Just barely. And probably it is because Oxford has already made transformative agreements with various, as I said, Max Planck and others. So the mostly productive countries do have some sort of agreement with Oxford already. So there may not be a huge income. I mean, we made a tiny little analysis in late May about the expected number of papers coming in, just looking at how many A&A member country astronomers, how many papers from A&A member country astronomers were published in most of this last year, and we assume that 2/3 comes to A&A. That would imply 600 plus papers on top of already 2,500 papers. So that's an increase of 25 to 30% is foreseen. That's actually a huge cost because the cost of publishing is based on the page numbers. But this is roughly the fractions we are talking about.
Okay, people, let's.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Stop recording.